The prince drank from a puddle on the ground, and instantly turned into a stag. His little sister watched it happen, and could do nothing but follow him into the wilderness. But this is not just a story about a curse. It's about a bond between brother and sister that nothing in this world could break. Get comfortable now and listen closely. Now, our story begins long ago, in a kingdom far away, where a padishah had just died and left behind a son and a daughter. Once upon a time, when the servants of Allah were many, there lived a padishah who had one son and one daughter. The padishah grew old, his time came, and he died. His son ruled in his stead, and he had not ruled very long before he had squandered away his whole inheritance. One day he said to his sister, "Little sister, all our money is spent. If people were to hear that we had nothing left, they would drive us out of doors, and we should never be able to look our fellow men in the face again. Far better, therefore, if we depart and take up our abode elsewhere." So they tied together the little they had left, and then the brother and sister quitted their father's palace in the night time and wandered forth into the wide world. They went on till they came to a vast sandy desert, where they were like to have fallen to the ground for the burning heat. The youth felt that he could go not a step further when he saw on the ground a little puddle of water. "Little sister," said he, "I will not go a step further till I have drunk this water." "Nay, dear brother," replied the girl, "who can tell whether it be really water or filth? If we have held up so long, surely we can hold up a little longer. Water we are bound to find soon." "I tell thee," replied her brother, "that I'll not go another step further till I have drunk up this puddle, though I die for it." And with that he knelt down, sucked up every drop of the dirty water, and instantly became a stag. The little sister wept bitterly at this mischance, but there was nothing for it but to go on as they were. They went on, up hill and down dale, right across the sandy waste, till they came to a full spring beneath a large tree, and there they sat them down and rested. "Hearken now, little sister," said the stag. "Thou must mount up into that tree, while I go to see if I can find something to eat." So the girl climbed up into the tree, and the stag went about his business, ran up hill and down dale, caught a hare, brought it back, and he and his sister ate it together, and so they lived from day to day and from week to week. Now the horses of the padishah of that country were wont to be watered at the spring beneath the large tree. One evening the horsemen led their horses up to it as usual, but just as they were on the point of drinking, they caught sight of the reflection of the damsel in the watery mirror, and reared back. The horsemen fancied that perhaps the water was not quite pure, so they drew off the trough and filled it afresh. But again the horses reared backwards and would not drink of it. The horsemen knew not what to make of it, so they went and told the padishah. "Perchance the water is muddy," said the padishah. "Nay," replied the horseman, "we emptied the trough once and filled it full again with fresh water, and yet the horses would not drink of it." "Go again," said their master, "and look well about you. Perchance there is someone near the spring of whom they are afraid." The horsemen returned, and looking well about the spring, cast their eyes at last upon the large tree, on the top of which they perceived the damsel. They immediately went back and told the padishah. The padishah took the trouble to go and look for himself, and raising his eyes perceived in the tree a damsel as lovely as the moon when she is 14 days old, so that he absolutely could not take his eyes off her. "Art thou a spirit or a peri?" said the Padishah to the damsel. "I am neither a spirit nor a peri, but a mortal as thou art," replied the damsel. In vain the Padishah begged her to come down from the tree. In vain he implored her. Nothing he could say would make her come down. Then the Padishah waxed wroth. He commanded them to cut down the tree. The men brought their axes and fell a-hewing at the tree. They hewed away at the vast tree. They hewed and hewed until only a little strip of solid trunk remained to be cut through. But meanwhile eventide had drawn nigh, and it began to grow dark. So they left off their work, which they purposed to finish next day. Scarcely had they departed when the stag came running out of the forest, looked at the tree, and asked the little sister what had happened. The girl told him that she would not descend from the tree, so they had tried to cut it down. "Thou didst well," replied the stag, "and take care thou dost not come down in future, whatever they may say." With that he went to the tree, licked it with his tongue, and immediately the tree grew bigger round the hewed trunk than before. The next day, when the stag had again departed about his business, the Padishah's men came and saw that the tree was larger and harder round the trunk than ever. Again they set to work hewing at the tree, and hewed till they had cut half through it. But by that time evening fell upon them again, and again they put off the rest of the work till the morrow, and went home. But all their labor was lost, for the stag came again, licked the gap in the tree with his tongue, and immediately it grew thicker and harder than ever. Early next morning, when the stag had only just departed, the Padishah and his woodcutters again came to the tree, and when they saw that the trunk of the tree had filled up again, larger and firmer than ever, they determined to try some other means. So they went home again, and sent for a famous old witch, told her of the damsel in the tree, and promised her a rich reward if she would, by subtlety, make the damsel come down. The old witch willingly took the matter in hand, and bringing with her an iron tripod, a cauldron, and sundry raw meats, placed them by the side of the spring. She placed the tripod on the ground, and the kettle on the top of it, but upside down, drew water from the spring and poured it not into the kettle, but on the ground beside it, and with that she kept her eyes closed, as if she were blind. The damsel fancied she really was blind, and called to her from the tree, "Nay, but my dear elder sister, thou hast placed the kettle on the tripod upside down, and art pouring all the water on the ground." "Oh, my sweet little damsel," cried the old woman, "that is because I have no eyes to see with. I have brought some dirty linen with me, and if thou dost love Allah, thou wilt come down and put the kettle right, and help me to wash the things." Then the damsel thought of the words of the little stag, and she did not come down. The next day the old witch came again, stumbled about the tree, laid a fire, and brought forth a heap of meal in order to sift it, but instead of meal she put ashes into the sieve. "Poor silly old granny," cried the damsel compassionately, and then she called down from the tree to the old woman, and told her that she was sifting ashes instead of meal. "Oh, my dear damsel," cried the old woman, weeping, "I am blind, I cannot see. Come down and help me a little in my affliction." Now the little stag had strictly charged her that very morning not to come down from the tree, whatever might be said to her, and she obeyed the words of her brother. On the third day the old witch again came beneath the tree, This time she brought a sheep with her, and brought out a knife to flay it with, and began to jag and skin it from behind instead of cutting its throat. The poor little sheep bleated piteously, and the damsel in the tree, unable to endure the sight of the beast's sufferings, came down from the tree to put the poor thing out of its misery. Then the padishah, who was concealed close to the tree, rushed out and carried the damsel off to his palace. The damsel pleased the padishah so mightily that he wanted to be married to her without more ado. But the damsel would not consent till they had brought her her brother, the little stag. Until she saw him, she said, she could have not a moment's rest. Then the padishah sent men out into the forest, who caught the stag and brought him to his sister. After that, he never left his sister's side. They lay down together, and together they rose up. Even when the padishah and the damsel were wedded, the little stag was never far away from them, and in the evening, when he found out where they were, he would softly stroke each of them all over with one of his front feet before going to sleep beside them, and say, "This little foot is for my sister, that little foot is for my brother." But time, as men count it, passes quickly to its fulfillment. More quickly still passes the time of fairy tales. But quickest of all flies the time of true love. Yet our little people would have lived on happily if there had not been a black female slave in the palace. Jealousy devoured her at the thought that the padishah had taken to his bosom the ragged damsel from the treetop rather than herself, and she watched for an opportunity of revenge. Now there was a beautiful garden in the palace, with a fountain in the midst of it, and there the sultan's damsel used to walk about. One day, with a golden saucer in her hand and a silver sandal on her foot, she went towards the great fountain, and the black slave followed after her and pushed her in. There was a big fish in the basin, and it immediately swallowed up the sultan's pet damsel. Then the black slave returned to the palace, put on the golden raiment of the sultan's damsel, and sat down in her place. In the evening the padishah came and asked the damsel what she had done to her face, that it was so much altered. "I have walked too much in the garden, and so the sun has tanned my face," replied the girl. The padishah believed her and sat down beside her. But the little stag came also, and when he began to stroke them both down with his forefoot, he recognized the slave girl as he said, "This little foot is for my sister, and this little foot is for my brother." Then it became the one wish of the slave girl's heart to be rid of the little stag as quickly as possible, lest it should betray her. So after a little thought she made herself sick and sent for the doctors, and gave them much money to say to the padishah that the only thing that could save her was the heart of the little stag to eat. So the doctors went and told the padishah that the sick woman must swallow the heart of the little stag, or there was no hope for her. Then the padishah went to the slave girl whom he fancied to be his pet damsel, and asked her if it did not go against her to eat the heart of her own brother. "What can I do?" sighed the impostor. "If I die, what will become of my poor little pet? If he be cut up, I shall live, while he will be spared the torments of those poor beasts that grow old and sick." Then the padishah gave orders that a butcher's knife should be whetted, and a fire lighted, and a cauldron of water put over the fire. The poor little stag perceived all the bustling about, and ran down into the garden to the fountain, and called out 3 times to his sister, "The knife is on the stone, The water's on the boil. Haste, little sister, hasten. And thrice she answered back to him from the fish's maw. Here am I in the fish's belly, in my hand a golden saucer, on my foot a silver sandal, in my arms a little padisha. For the Sultan's pet damsel had brought forth a little son in the fish's belly. Now the padisha was intent on catching the little stag when it ran down into the garden to the fountain, and coming up softly behind it, heard every word of what the brother and sister were saying to each other. He quietly ordered all the water to be drained off the basin of the fountain, drew up the fish, cut open its belly, and what do you think he saw? In the belly of the fish was his wife, with a golden saucer in her hand, and a silver sandal on her foot, and a little son in her arm. Then the padishah embraced his wife, and kissed his son, and brought them both to the palace, and heard the tale of it all to the very end. But the little stag found something in the fish's blood, and when he had swallowed it, he became a man again. Then he rushed to his sister, and they embraced and wept with joy over each other's happiness. But the padishah sent for his black slave girl, and asked her which she would like the best, 4 good steeds or 4 good swords. The slave girl replied, "Let the swords be for the throats of my enemies, but give me the 4 steeds, that I may take my pleasure on horseback." Then they tied the slave girl to the tails of 4 good steeds, and sent her out for a ride, and the 4 steeds tore the black girl into little bits and scattered them abroad. But the padishah and his wife lived happily together, and the king's son, who had been a stag, abode with them. And they gave a great banquet, which lasted 4 days and 4 nights, and they attained their desires. And may ye, O my readers, attain your desires likewise. And so ends the tale of the Stag-Prince, a brother who became a deer to protect his sister, a sister whose love never wavered, and a truth that was hidden inside a fish at the bottom of a fountain. You know what this old story teaches us? That the people who truly love you will always find their way back to you. No curse, no distance, no trick can break that bond. And sometimes the ones who seem the weakest, the little stag with his soft hooves, are the ones who see the truth when everyone else is fooled. So hold on to the ones who love you, be patient, and trust that the truth always rises, even from the belly of a fish. Now close your eyes. Imagine a quiet garden, with a fountain trickling softly, and the sound of gentle hooves on stone, and know that you are safe and you are loved. Good night.